Welcome to the Foster Medina podcast series, where you'll hear from foster families who overcame their own fears and made the decision to make a difference. If you're thinking about becoming a foster parent, this podcast may provide the answers you are looking for. Now here's your host, Bryan Lefelhoc.
Hello and welcome to the Foster Medina podcast, where we discuss real issues, real challenges, real things you're thinking about before deciding to become a foster parent, and real success stories about doing just that. My name is Bryan Lefelhoc, and on behalf of the Medina County Job and Family Services, I'm happy to host this series about becoming a foster parent. It's a calling that will change your life, and something we like to think is that even thinking about it will change your life. And sometimes just thinking about it means you have to decide. And that's kind of what today is all about as we record this program. There are children waiting right now for a family to bring them in, to support them and to care for them and to love them. And it's an amazing and truly great thing for you to do. But we really want you to understand that's not what this show is about. What we do want to do is inform you. We don't want to talk you into anything. So that's not going to happen today. We want to help you make an informed decision one way or the other, either to learn more or that maybe you can make the decision that it's not right for you. Either way, we want to help you make that decision. So let's do that. In our experience at Medina County Job and Family Services, we do find that many families worry about a few of the same things, and that makes sense. And so much sometimes that it can even get in the way of a potential foster parent making that initial call in the first place. Things like, I'm worried about being a good foster parent, that I won't be a good parent, or that I don't have what it takes, or perhaps worried about potential issues with the birth parents and that relationship and what that looks like. Maybe you're worried about cost. These things many potential foster families and parents worry about. And there's a list of them actually on the fostermedina.com website. You can see all the things that we know you're thinking. We call them myths because they are just that. They're usually unfounded concerns. That doesn't mean you're wrong to wonder. You should be wondering these things. If you're wondering these things, it means you're asking the right questions, and that's good for you. And so today we want to talk about one of those concerns. One of those myths is the concern that a potential foster parent might get too attached to the foster kids, so much so that when it's time to let go or to say goodbye, and that it's just going to hurt too much. And so a potential foster parent maybe doesn't step in the first place. And our guest today is going to talk about that. He did worry about this, and we're going to talk about it. But first, let's talk about the facts against that myth, that go with that myth. There is no doubt that you're going to get attached. It's just a guarantee. When you're doing it right, you're going to get attached. That foster relationship's going to change, and likely, at least officially, it's going to be different, and it's going to be hard. But isn't that one of the most amazing things that can happen to these kids? Imagine someone will care enough about them, someone will love them, someone will provide security, trust, and stability. The fact that someone will actually become attached to them, I mean, yeah, it's hard, but it's going to be harder for a child to grow up without a parent and without that attachment. And so if you're worried about this one, it probably means you're the perfect candidate to be a foster parent, and we do hope that you'll look into that along the way. So as you can see, a lot of these facts don't support the myths, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be thinking about those things. Your feelings do matter. And so let's talk about that. We're going to talk today with our guest, Scott Ward. Scott is a language arts teacher in Brunswick High School. He and his wife, Terry, have had 5 foster children over the last 3 years, one of which they adopted in January of 2024. And so we're going to have a spin, I think, on the conversation about becoming too attached. Scott, welcome to the Foster Medina podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really glad you're here. I know it takes a lot of vulnerability, maybe a little bit of allowing someone into your personal space to talk about these things. But there are folks out there trying to make the same decision you made 4 years ago, and they really do appreciate your thoughts. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I had a lot of the same fears, a lot of the hesitation. So glad to do it and glad to help with that.
Yeah. And most folks do. It's not something you should take lightly. And so I'm glad you did. And I'm glad you took that step. And we're going to talk about that. One of those myths being that, won't I get too attached? And I think that you had some of those same concerns. And maybe let's talk about that a little bit. Before you and your wife actually made the decision to look into this deeper, let's talk about some of those concerns that you were having.
Yeah, we were so concerned, especially myself, that we looked just into adoption or thought that that is all that we want to do is go straight to adoption. Didn't understand the process of fostering to adoption when we first started. And slowly learned through the process, through being educated, through talking with others, that the fostering is really the beautiful part of it. You mentioned a little bit of like gaining that foundation, that trust in the child and becoming like a bridge for them and a backup for them. We realized that we didn't have to go away just because they moved on, they were reunified or moved on to a different situation, that we're still a part of that. And we still are with our foster kids that we've had.
How were you able to convince each other before you made the steps, took the next steps that, let's take this risk? What made you feel like, let's go ahead and try this? What got you over that hump?
Yeah, to be very honest, our caseworker, Tricia, really educated us and was patient with us and heard us out. And we were able to openly talk about our fears and our not wanting to foster at first, because I especially was, I don't want to foster. I don't want to get attached. I'm not going to be able to let that feeling just go. And it took a lot of talk from Tricia and a lot of kind of education and understanding to realize you don't have to let it go, that it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. To get the attachment and to want that attachment, to keep that attachment is healthy, and it should be that way.
What does that mean, Scott? What does it mean not to have to let it go? Most of these foster kids will, like we said earlier, they will move on, though it's something different will happen. And what does that mean to not let go?
I think in my head, it means that I had it set that it's black and white. A child will come into your life, foster kid will come into your life, and then if they get reunified or if they move on to another foster family, that's the end of it. That's my own ignorance, didn't know any better. And it's not that way at all. Even if reunification, we've not met all the parents of the foster kids we have, but the ones we had a relationship with. We saw them, at visitation, talked to them at visitation. It wasn't all bad. It wasn't at all what I made it to be in my head. Doesn't mean it can't always be some kind of way or kind of iffy, but it's a good situation. It's a good system. It's a good setup to kind of gain the trust and for them to see, parents and kids to see that you have their best interests, but you to also see that you're a part of their life now.
Let's play the other side of that coin. So I think so far in your relationship now with these kids that you've had in your home, it's gone well, and you haven't had the severe cutting of the cord and tie at the end. You still have a relationship, like you said. If what would happen in your family or in your world if you did? Let's say something changed immediately and you never got to see these kids again. You never got to. Do you worry about that? And how would, I think after this number of years, you've probably got a plan in place if that were the case. How would you deal with that?
Yeah, and we have different levels of communication and contact with our foster kids, and some a little bit less, some a little bit more. And the ones with a little bit less, we realize that we're just a part of the process. We're not I think the problem that I had specifically was I thought I had to be everything. And that's just not the case whatsoever. There are a lot of people working to make sure that there's a stability and a foundation for these kids and that things go well. It doesn't mean everything is going to go perfect, but it does mean that you're not the only one in charge of keeping those relationships going and having good transitions. So when the transition isn't as good as you'd want it to be, for us, there was still a feeling of we did everything we could, honestly, to help them, and we hoped and tried to help positively impact them.
That's tremendous. Can you pretend to imagine what your foster kids are thinking now? They're attached as well. How do you think that relationship, as far as they go, how might you imagine they're feeling knowing that they became attached to you, but they're not with you any longer?
Yeah, I think what really helps, and that was a concern of mine too, not only my own feelings of transitioning, but what do you do if you have a kid, if you have brothers, if you have sisters that you're seeing all the time and now you're not seeing them? A lot of that is being able to talk to them ahead of time. And we did. We were very honest with our foster kids from the get-go, or as quick as we could be, with we either are an adoption, because they're very concerned with what's going to happen with them and when they're going to be moved out if they are going to be moved out. And it's just a level of honesty and transition that we've had with them to let them know that we're not rushing anything. Now, things might be rushed. Circumstances might cause that. But when they do, we're here to talk to you. We're going to help you. Trisha's here to talk to you. She's going to help you. There's a whole team behind it. It's not just snapping of the fingers and it happens just like that. There's a process throughout for the benefit of the kids especially, but also for us, which I don't think I knew before we started fostering. I was solely focused on the kids, which of course is important, but there's a lot of support for the parents as well.
And let's talk a little bit about that support. So it's it's going to be an issue. You go in with eyes wide open. You talk with everybody. Everybody's on the same page. And yet there is this support underneath that's helping you along the way. What kind of things are they helping you with in the process? What kind of things come up that they're there to kind of catch you in?
Well, with Trisha, our caseworker, I can honestly say that Terry and I could mention or talk about anything to her and any concerns that we had. And we didn't ever feel, and this is being very honest, ever feel judged, ever feel bad, ever meant to feel bad. There are times when she would give advice based on her experience, which is much more than ours, and times, well, maybe you could take this class or look into this class or look into this book. So there was always let me help you, try to guide you in the right direction. There was never talking down to, there was never I can't believe you're thinking that way. And that helped us a lot because the more we felt safe with questioning, the more we felt safe with reaching out, the better it was. And then that confidence helps a lot because our caseworkers, no matter which one we had, they are overworked for sure. And just to be able to reach out and text and know that they're going to get back to you, even though they are so overworked and so busy with so many caseloads, helped us a lot too.
Yeah. And that's so important. And one last question about the attachment. I'm thinking from the kids' point of view. I said at the beginning of the program that now they're loved. Now they have a level of stability. Now they have a level of care, someone to care about them. I don't know, though. I'm an adoptive parent. I've never been a foster parent, so I don't know what that's like. For a kid, is that true? The attachment, the fact that they're going to miss you. They're going to miss all that love. They're going to miss that stability. They're going to miss that thing that you're built for them. And yet, they had it, and they have it. Do they understand the difference that they're better off even though it hurts a little bit inside?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we saw with transitioning from our home to another home was it was an actual transition. It wasn't the case where maybe, and I'm not speaking to any specifics, but the police came and they were taken away to another house and it was all sudden and it was all happened so quick that they didn't really get to process. With some of the foster kids, we've been able to talk about it for weeks, months ahead of time. We've been able to pack up things with them. We've been able to go through things with them. We've been able to talk to them at night. So I think that's one huge difference is they're learning that moving on doesn't always mean moving on and never seeing a person again. It doesn't always mean that they're gone forever. And just like us, we had to learn the same thing. They learn that too by example.
Tell me a little bit about the adoption. Along the way, that attachment stuck. Can you give me a little example of what went on in your minds and your family's minds and how that transpired?
Yeah, I can just tell you that it really worked out each step of the way. And it wasn't like we were sure from day one that everything was going to be perfect because that's not a reality. No. We don't know the background. We don't know how we're going to react to everything. But in this particular case, it worked out beautifully. She's a girl that changed the way we look at the world 100%. And she's changed so much and has grown so much. It was just a perfect situation for us. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and there's an idea that you have to be a perfect somebody to be able to foster, to be able to adopt. And you don't. There's so many kids out there. There's so many different needs that maybe my experience and my background or Terry's experience and background is good for one kid or set of kids, but there's somebody else that's good for another with a whole different experience. This adoption, it just worked out perfectly for us that what her needs were and what her wants were what we were and are able to provide and continuing to provide.
Isn't it amazing the different levels when we have the opportunity to choose to be a parent, to be a foster parent, to be an adoptive parent, we beat ourselves up with all it'll never work. I'm not ready. I'm not right. Things aren't this thing. And yet we have natural childbirth all the time and none of us know what to do. You know, there's no handbook. I've had 3 kids and I know the third one was raised far better than my first because I had an idea of what I was doing, but I wasn't ready to go. And are we ever, right? Talk to me, Scott, a little bit about the idea of the birth-parent relationship. So you've gone through this a few times. Some potential foster parents are wondering, is there another whole aspect to this that I'm going to get myself into? Different relationships, different families. What can you tell me about the stress that causes, or how well it works out in your experience?
I think in our minds, it was much worse, or the possibility of what could happen was much worse than with us what actually happened. And the more we went through it and the more we got used to it and the more it became routine, the better it got for us. So the fear of, oh my gosh, what could happen? What if they don't care for us? What if they're angry? We didn't want to be a part of that. We want to be a part of the positive, the love, the foundation. We, in our minds, kind of placed some negativity on things that we weren't sure if it was going to be negative. And in most cases, for us anyhow, it wasn't negative. It was just our approach. And even when we had a couple of times when maybe things weren't as smooth as you'd want them to go from the outside, it was okay if you had an understanding of what they're going through too. I mean, it's very hard for the natural parents too to go through this. It's not just our side and our feelings and our foundation of who we are. They're having trouble too. So I think we were able to put ourselves in their shoes and kind of see a little bit of what was going on and try to understand what our role is instead of trying to be everything everywhere.
Is there a stereotype, based on something you just said made me think, is there a stereotype that, I'm good and they're bad before we even get into it that causes some concern that maybe just isn't really accurate most of the time?
I don't know that there's a stereotype. I just don't have a background to know, but I think there's almost a want to say like, I'm good and they must be bad because why else would this be happening? And I'm sure there are some horrific things that happen and why this is happening, but I'm also sure there are plenty of cases that Tricia can talk about, other caseworkers can talk about where it worked out just fine with the parents and the kids being reunified.
Yeah, I think I have to assume it most often works out just fine. I have to assume that that's at least the goal. What about your family dynamic now? I'm interested. 3 or 4 years ago, you decided to do this. Looking back, what do you think? Had you not decided to make the plunge, your life would be very different now. What can you tell me about those years over by and how they've changed your perspective on life?
Yeah, changed them at 50, 51 at the time when we started. I'm 54 now. Changed a lot. I never want to be stagnant. I never want to stop growing. I never want to think that I know everything and I am everything. And fostering and adopting has taught me that I absolutely don't in a very good way. I've learned to see, and Terry has learned to see the world in a different way, to see and accept things differently than what we might have done previously. It's changed us for the better. Even our worst, if you want to call them worst, experience in fostering and adoption, which when you look back, they were actually learning, they were actually stepping stones to where we're at now. So I can't ever call the girl that we adopted a mistake because of everything that happened before. It was a beautiful transition or steps into meeting her and to learning that we're actually better for this girl and she's better for us than maybe one of the past, which you don't know at the time. So it's kind of learn as you go. And at 54, you'd like to think that you know a little bit more than what maybe you do, but you keep learning and your world opens up to seeing things in different ways. And yeah, it's been a great thing for both Terry and myself.
So foster care probably isn't for everyone. And that's what this program is about. Should you think about it more or should you not? And people are wondering before they make that phone call. I'm interested what you would tell someone who's listening now, who's not sure if they're good enough, ready, if they can handle the attachment, if they handle the issues, but they just don't know what they don't know. What would you suggest to them if they're listening?
Yeah, you'll never know what you don't know. And as long as you know in your heart that everything you're doing for fostering, for adopting is for a love and a place of making another person's life better, I don't think you can go wrong. Because with that will come a want to learn. With that will come a want to change. Maybe how you raised even your own kids if you had them, and how you need to look at raising or having a foster kid or an adopted kid in your family, because it's not the same. I would give the advice of don't think you have to be perfect. Don't think that you have to be one background or another. I spoke to a group of people once and a lady asked, well, I haven't been married for 30 years like you. I don't have a spouse or a husband like you, so I can't foster. And that's absolutely not true. Foster kids need differing backgrounds, want differing backgrounds. We're right for some of the kids that we have, but certainly not all of them. So those backgrounds are very important. I would say if it was me giving advice, and I actually just had one of my soccer players that I had, she was a high school player, is thinking of fostering and adopting, and said she was going to fill out the form at Medina County. And I said, don't go into it thinking you have to be perfect. Learn all that you can learn and know that you're going to make mistakes. But as long as you're willing and wanting to better yourself and others, you're going to be fine.
That's great advice. And just by saying that, it makes me think that just the friend that you were talking to, go ahead and fill out the form. Filling out that form is a big commitment because now I know I have to talk to someone. Now I know I'm on someone's radar. Now I know that maybe someone's going to call me and maybe I'm going to get pressured and maybe it's going to be. Can you tell me a little bit about that relationship? When you made the first step, the first contact, did you feel pressured at all? Did you feel like, man, I've stepped in too far, now there's no turning back? Or did you really feel like you had the ability to still make a good decision and just kind of learn the facts?
This is something that Terry and I had talked about since the time we were 18. And of course, life kind of gets in not the way, but you're living life and things get put off. And we were just at an age and at a time where it was kind of like, we can do this now if we really want to. And I don't know if it got time stamped, but I want to say I filled out that form at like 2 o'clock in the morning, push send. And then it was for us an excitement. We couldn't wait to hear back. We couldn't wait to get started. Couldn't wait to start learning, taking the classes. And it worked out great for us in that way. So there wasn't a fear for me. There wasn't oh my gosh, what I do? Because there's no one telling you have to be anything. Even when you get the call that you're going to have a foster kid place with you, it's your say. It's not anyone saying this is what's going to happen and you're going to do it whether you like it or not. It's a very easy process, I thought, for us, and a very almost welcoming process. I will not forget the first time I was not home for our first placement, but when I came home, the caseworker was at our house for a half hour and made sure could see we were nervous. I'm sure could see we didn't know what to do and kind of took those steps for us and kind of modeled what we should be doing. So the second, when we had that opportunity again, when that happened, we kind of just followed that same pattern that was shown to us. And that's the same thing with the form. It's no pressure. It's no, I'm worried about what's going to happen. It was a very, here's the information. Here's how we can help you. Here's how we can get you started. What can we do for you? It's not what you can do for them kind of thing.
Yeah. And the classes weren't difficult? They weren't hard to take, or how did that go?
Not at all. Easy to take, both in person and the videos. And I had to laugh. There are videos that you're going to watch, at least that we watched, that I was like, okay, I've raised kids. I get this. This is pretty simple. And I promise you that at some of the simplest suggestions, I found myself going back to that video, thinking about it and putting that into practice, because even though it's so simple, it's something that might need to be done with a new foster kid that you don't know as well as you would your own kids, kind of thing.
Scott, I appreciate everything that you've shared with us. I appreciate your story you've told. I know I share with you I'm adoptive parent as well, and I can't imagine. I don't even know how to call it that. It's a true statement, but it's not the truth, right? I'm a parent of 3 kids. One happened to be adopted, and it's just a life-changing opportunity. And I think fostering must be similar. And maybe, I don't know. It may be bigger, right, in this stage of a kid's life. And I just really thank you for everything that you've done and for sharing your story with people.
Oh, you're welcome. We've benefited more than we've benefited others, believe me, and glad to help in any way.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? It helps you as a family more than anybody else, as much as it helps someone else. It's almost like it's too big to fathom.
Very true.
Scott, thank you for being a part of our show. We really appreciate it. Folks, if you're out there listening or watching, that's what I'm hoping to convey to you, is that the next step is yes, I'd like to learn more. The next step is not, yes, I want to be a foster parent. Yes, I want to be an adoptive parent. The next step is, tell me more. I'm worried about this one thing. Let's talk about this. And that's the thing that we would like to see you do. That's the thing that Scott and his wife did. And it's making a difference not only in the foster kids and the adoptive kids' families, but in Scott's family as well. And so that next step really is an easy one. It's just a conversation. Her name is Lane Hedden. She is a foster parent recruiter with Medina County Job and Family Services. She is a foster parent. She has made it her life's work to help people like you decide what you should be doing, and to decide what you should be doing next and what your calling is. And you can contact Lane. It's a great opportunity to talk to someone that will just talk with you. You can call her, you can text her, 330-667-0167. Or you can email her at info@fostermedina.com. That's Lane. She'll be happy to help you get started, and who knows what happens next. But take that first step and just talk to her. So remember, our goal in this series isn't to talk you out of your concerns. It's to give you the confidence to reach out and discuss these concerns with us, and then make a good decision for you and your family about how you can make a difference in a young foster child's life. For more episodes that talk about different myths and ways around them, please subscribe. We'll get to them as soon as they are available. We'll send them out to you. You can learn more about foster care, adoption, and your options at fostermedina.com. And remember, if you're considering this step, your decision is going to make an impact one way or another. Don't try to ignore it. If you're thinking about it, learn more and then make a decision. We're glad you're taking the time to make the right choice. For the Foster Medina podcast, I am Bryan Lefelhoc. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Foster Medina podcast. We hope you found the answers you were looking for, and we'd love to talk to you more. To download the Foster Care Myths information sheet, click www.fostermedina.com. For more information or to contact us with questions, call or text 330-667-0167 or email info@fostermedina.com. The Foster Medina podcast is brought to you by Medina County Job and Family Services.